Welcome to That's Why We're Friends.
The podcast where we laugh a lot, talk about real life, and hold on to faith through it all.
We're two friends navigating the oldish season of life and celebrating the kind of friendships that make it all a little easier.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, hopeful, or just need a laugh, this podcast is for you.
Pull up a chair and join the conversation.
Sarah.
Hey, Kara.
How's it going?
It's going really well.
Yep.
This is an exciting new endeavor.
I know.
So anybody watching, you already know something is different.
Totally different. Yeah, totally different setup. We normally have our guests in studio.
Yes.
Today we're doing a long distance guest.
I know.
And I'm super excited.
It's our first time to have a long distance guest. Our first time to try this new kind of hosting guest atmosphere, which we're excited about. We're going to continue with. So all the new things.
I know. I'm also excited. I have a paper chain. You know what it's for?
What?
It's counting down to spring.
Oh,
It's so close.
I'm ready.
I feel like I can just almost grasp it.
We can start to count down, I think.
I feel like it's I can get the cushions out to put on the pool chairs and maybe just be safe.
You just have to be careful. March is one of those months that can hold a lot of disappointment or a lot of excitement, happiness, sunshine, but you just kind of have to hold it loosely. So just be careful with that.
I'll guard my heart.
Yes, guard your heart. So speaking of your heart, we've been talking about love this month, and we kind of introduced the different areas of love mentioned in scripture, and we get to dive into a really cool area that is a new endeavor for us, and we're very excited for our guest today. Her name is Debby Wade, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. I have known her. She's one of those people that I don't want to say how long we've known each other, even though we all know that we're oldish in this space, but it's been decades since we first met. We attended the same church years and years and years ago, and just knew Debby through lots of different women's events and things that we did, and she's been an expert in her area for as long as I've known her. And so she is in a really unique field of being a Christian sex therapist, and so we're going to get to hear all about that today. And so kind of like we did a few weeks ago when we had Dr. Brooke on.
Yep.
Was we don't always, dip into these areas, but when we do, we just like to give a little bit of a heads up in case moms are listening with littles or, anything like that. We want to be able to speak to the heart of women and to marriage and talking about intimacy and sex within marriage. And so we just always like to give a little bit of a disclaimer.
Probably not the episode for out loud in the grocery store.
Do you do that with podcasts out loud?
Ours, because I want people to follow us.
Oh, that's a great idea, but maybe just not this one. Okay.
Not this one.
So let's get to the exciting part of this. So I want to tell you a little bit about Debby. So as you guys know, we're here in the DFW area of Dallas, which is where Debby used to be. But 3 years ago, she and her husband moved to Montana, which is very exciting. Yeah. She received her degree from Hardin-Simmons University in marriage and family therapy. She's worked in inpatient and outpatient settings. And what's really exciting is that Debby founded ACTS, which is the Authentic Christian Therapeutic Solutions to aid in the emotional, spiritual, and sexual growth of individuals, couples, and families. And that is just a lot of the foundation that we're going to get to hear about today. And she gets to speak at a lot of different opportunities with conferences talking about sexual health, sexual education, sexual trauma, and intimacy. And she does this in churches and organizations. And so we're super excited and blessed to have her here with us. She, since 2017, has co-facilitated in-person marital intimacy groups and now offers those opportunities in 4-day retreats.
Wow.
In Montana.
Oh,
and
wow.
So,
I bet that's beautiful.
It is. And something I think I want to go check out. So Debby and her husband have been married for over 32 years. His name is Ryan, and they are in the Stevensville area of Montana. So I don't want to take up too much of our time. We're going to put your website and all those things in the show notes so people can go find out more about you. But welcome.
Well, thank you. And I'm so excited. I didn't know that I was the new long distance guest. So this is awesome.
So we appreciate your willingness to kind of pave the way with
You
us.
didn't even know you were helping us with technology, but you are.
Well, and that is such a surprise because I know very little about technology. So if I can be of help, awesome.
I think
Yeah.
in these oldest years, we all know very little about technology.
Ooh, yes, we've had a big learning curve with all the
Right.
and the old
Yeah.
one.
Nothing makes me feel more deficient than when it comes to doing new things on with technology. Yeah. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so I kind of gave your, just incredible bio, but what would you add to that, or how would you let people know, like, how did this first kind of became your passion and became the thing that you really wanted to help people in this area?
Okay, that great question because everybody asks that. How do you become a sex therapist? And so short answer is I was raised in a Christian family, and two things I'm so thankful that my parents taught me. One, having a personal relationship with Jesus, that it wasn't just a religion, it really was a relationship. And started that at a very young age. And then my parents, I believe, did an incredible job of just teaching about healthy biblical sexuality from an early age. And whatever home we grow up in, we think that's what everybody gets, right? And so then I got into, high school and college and just, whoa, it's like, oh, not everybody got this teaching. Then I became a therapist and just realized so few had any healthy concepts around sexuality and with God's design of sex. And so I developed and wrote a program called Back to the Basics to teach parents how to talk to their kids about sex. But one of the privileges I've not ever had is giving birth and having kids of my own. And so I thought, well, what authenticates me other than I've been on the receiving end. And I was going through a magazine one day and saw an advertisement for becoming a certified Christian sex therapist through the Institute for Sexual Wholeness in Atlanta. And went to my husband and said, I could become a certified sex therapist. What do you think? And typical male response, he was like, yeah, as long as lots of homework. And so that began my journey because what I found as a therapist is it didn't matter what the presenting issue was, it was usually impacting a couple's sexual relationship and or a couple's sexual relationship was impacting the rest of the marriage. And so I thought if I'm going to work in this and all, I need to be trained in it and certified in it. And it's been an incredible privilege and incredible journey to be invited into a very private area of couples' lives or individuals' lives, because I do work with a lot of individuals just um, finding themselves in a place of feeling sexually whole and healed. And that's a helpful journey when somebody's single, so they can discover that before they marry, you know. But yeah, it's been incredible privilege. So.
We started this month by just kind of talking about all the different types of love. But what we started with was that we can't actually exhibit any of those types of love to anyone in our life if we don't know how to live loved. And so I
Right.
think before we even go any further in this conversation, we kind of need to know from you, like, how do you define healthy sex in marriage?
It's a great
That's
question.
a great question. I love that because we can look at healthy and go, exactly what does that mean? And so I would first start by saying that we have to have individually, for each spouse individually, has to believe that their design of their sexuality was good,
Mm.
designed by God, and not just for our spouse's benefit, but for our benefit. And so that we can show up feeling confident in our own sexuality, what we have to offer, but also what we have to gain from being sexually intimate with our spouse. And then I think it's real important, we'll talk about this throughout, but seeing that sexual intimacy is integrated with spiritual and emotional intimacy. We can't separate those out. And so it helps to be mentally and emotionally healthy uh, in order to come together sexually, and then spiritually healthy in order to come together. And then recognizing that just some key factors of healthy sexuality, it certainly is about desire, you know. and then the erotic, the arousal, but it's also about pleasure and satisfaction, and that being mutual, not just one serving the other, but it being a mutual experience that we're going for, and that we're willing to recognize, and we'll talk about this, I think, unpack it through, that there's differences in preferences between spouses, between husbands and wives, and those differences and preferences have to be respected.
Right.
So,
Well, I love just even the way you kind of package it, because one of the things we've done this month, thinking about love and Valentine's Day and kind of the world's messaging versus God's messaging. And so I think you really sum that up well, because I think the world will tell you that this is separate, that you can actually take this, your sexuality is over here and it's this thing that just can be all by itself. But knowing that is not the way that God created our bodies, that's not the way that it works. And that's why so much damage can be done when we take it out of context, because it does impact us physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so I love that foundational piece. I think that's so key. So as we think about, we kind of talked about this, our oldish years is kind of the word that we found along the way that kind of speaks to us. And so this is obviously an area that can become more of a topic of conversation with women and just in marriages, as we think about getting older, but also still being healthy in our marriages with sex and with sexuality. And so how has that process been for you, working with women or oldish couples, and the things that you've seen and what's helpful for us oldish couples?
okay. And I'll have to, put a disclaimer there too. I am also in those oldish years. And so this, I was like, when y'all said this is what we're doing, it's like, yes, because we need to speak of this, right? And I'd want to start that, we're sexual beings from the womb to the tomb. It's not like there's ever a time that we don't have to deal with our sexuality and acknowledge it. Now, there may be periods or seasons of life that we may not be sexually active, but we're always sexual. And so having a healthy relationship with our sexuality is so important in our oldish years as well. And so I just want to say first, it's always significant. And then one of my favorite phrases about talking about sex and sexuality is I heard a quote one time from a conference I went to, and when the woman said it, I felt kind of cheated out of my money. But she said, the problem with complexity is it's very complicated. Uh-huh. But then when I started studying and teaching sex and became a sex therapist and recognizing, and I know some of these topics we're going to talk about, but there's a difference in high desire and lower desire and just desire in general, the differences between men and women. And when you look at our family of origin issues and what shows up with us in the bedroom, and then just our trauma often around sex, and then aging and what we have to deal with that. Sex is really, really pretty complex.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would ask you, do you know what the problem with complexity is?
It's complicated.
It is very complicated. So that's what just in a starting about this is there's no simple answer to any of the questions that we're going to dialogue about. But I think being willing to unpack the complexity and giving permission that we're not going to just learn everything overnight. And so even growing in the changes that we're going to experience in our older years, excuse me, our older years, to be patient with ourselves as we dive into some of the specifics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, just, we acknowledge here that we certainly can't speak to everyone in their situation because of the complexity, right? Like everyone has experienced something different for sure in their lives regarding sexuality. So yeah, we want to just put that right out there that we definitely can't speak to that. But the good news is you're going to give us so much information today, and then people can get in touch with you if they need to. So,
And speaking to that, I just love what you're offering and what you're doing, especially given a platform for talking about healthy sexuality. Because research shows that 60% of couples, no matter what ages, but 60% of couples struggle in some way sexually.
mhm,
And research also shows that 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 7 men report some sort of desire issues.
mhm,
And so we're talking about a lot of people,
mhm,
and especially in this day and age that there's so many of us now in our 50s and 60s
mhm,
and 70s, wanting to navigate, and I'll say 80s, navigate sexuality. I'll speak of this. My parents, they've both passed, but just an example with them, they were when my mom passed, they were 79, and my dad was 82, and they were both still very sexually active, and so when she passed, it rocked his world,
mhm.
you know and she knew it was going to rock his world, you know. And then the oldest couple that I've ever worked with were 89 and 92. And
Wow.
so when I say that this is, when we talk about oldish years, we also want to give hope to those that go, okay, I'm past oldish, I'm
Sure.
in the elder years,
Yeah.
right? And how significant this conversation is.
Yeah.
So.
So keeping in mind what we've said, that there's complexity, there's not one thing that you can say that's going to be like a magic fix. But if there was one starting point, if you so we have a wife or a husband, and one of the things they're facing is the discrepancy in the desire. Is there a starting point, or is there something that you kind of give them a jumping off place for how to start addressing that in a healthy way?
I think when we talk about desire, we just first it's important for us to go what's reality versus what are myths that we've believed because of either culture or culturally believed. And we follow a lot of myths, and we may not even recognize we're believing a lot of myths. But in 95% of couples, there is a higher desire spouse and a lower desire spouse. And that's not what we have a tendency to believe. We have this idea of, oh my goodness, if we were in love with each other and we had a hard time keeping our hands off each other and all the excitement we had in the beginning, when we marry, it'll be that way forever, right? And or if it's like, oh, we struggled a little bit, but marriage fixes everything. We come in with these myths of believing that somehow our sexuality is just going to line up and we're both going to desire each other. Couples often say, we know I just kind of had this belief that when we marry, I'd be able to have sex anytime I wanted.
Mhm.
It's like, not to quote Dr. Phil, but how's that working for you? Then when you get in,
Yeah.
running out, you don't get to,
Yeah.
really have sex every time you want to. So desire discrepancy is real. It's very common, and it's really natural. When we think of desiring of anything else besides sex, there's very few people that come together and desire the same things at the same tenacity 100% of the time. You
Yeah.
know, so I think to accept that it's natural for us to have this desire discrepancy. And what we want to help couples, my favorite quote in our field is most couples fight about sex, but few couples talk about sex. And so the first thing that I want to help couples with when they come in, really whether it's desire discrepancy or any other issue that's causing disruption in their connectivity and in their intimacy, is I want to help change their dialogue and learn to talk about sex instead of fight about sex. To remember that intimacy issue, it's a team effort.
Mhm.
It's not an individual problem, but it's a couple issue. So I want to realign them that they're on the same side, for each other, not against each other, and to learn how to talk about it, not fight about it.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I'm going to just speak generally only because it feels like what we always hear is that it's typically the man who has a higher desire than the woman. Is that true? Do you see that in your practice? Or is that just a myth that we hear?
Okay. And I love it that you're qualifying between myth and, what's real. And so research shows that out of couples that struggle, that is really the struggle of higher desire and lower desire, that about 80% of those couples, it is the male that is the high desire. 70 to 80%, depending on which research you read, but 70, 80%. So then that means 20 to 30% of those couples, it's the wife with the higher desire.
Mhm.
And that's real important for us to speak into, because you know, when we hear that, for women that are the high desire, they begin to think, well, what's wrong with me that I'm the higher desire? Or
Mhm.
what is wrong with him that he's not into me, or
Mhm.
that he's not functioning like he's supposed to? Even the pastor said,
Wow.
Yeah.
he's supposed to want sex and need sex at least 3 times a week, or something's going to explode or fall off. And I can't get him to pay attention to me. And so that's an important um, piece of information for us to realize that many women are the high desire spouse.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
And here's what I'd want both males or females to know if they're the higher desire spouse. Typically, where we take that is, if you don't desire me the way that I desire you, I feel hurt and rejected. So
Mhm.
when we feel hurt and rejected, what's usually the emotion that we demonstrate and show?
Anger, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What?
Anger, unfortunately.
Yes. It's usually anger, unfortunately. And anger is typically not a good aphrodisiac. Anger is
No.
not
It's definitely not.
usually a good motivator for desire, you
Mhm.
know. And so if I'm screaming and yelling or angry at my spouse or pouting or being punitive, that is not going to work in my best interest to increase my spouse's desire.
Mhm.
And so we certainly want to tend to that hurt and rejection, but also help them know how to express that in a way that's not becoming more destructive or more of a turn off than what we're already experiencing.
Yeah, that's great. It's one of those things where I think it's obvious, but we have to remember, because so much of what we're talking about, is feelings, and the feelings of rejection and desire. And this is the one person where, you know, in a perfect world, we don't have to feel or experience those things, and we know that that's not actually true. But it's like the communication piece and the humility and the gentleness part feels like they become so important to fight against everything that you were just talking about, like acting out of those feelings of rejection, which that's so hard, because that goes so deep into all of us. We all
Mhm.
have trauma growing up
Mhm.
from, little trauma, big trauma, whatever, just with rejection. And so I think that's such a great reminder of just the gentleness. It's part of the fruit of the spirit, it's part of what we have in all of us. And if there was ever an area or a topic where gentleness is like the key, it
Mhm.
feels like that's such a big part of trying to communicate about this topic specifically.
Yeah. One of my colleagues, Billy Grammer, who he and I have done marital intimacy groups together since it was either 2016 or 2017. We started doing marital intimacy groups. And then he comes out and does many of the marital intimacy experiences out here in Montana with me. And I love his teaching. He always teaches on, we have two paths of motivation. We can either go with negative motivation or positive motivation. And the interesting thing is, most likely we will never get a positive using negative.
Mhm.
And and so if we tend to do that, higher desire spouses do that. Well, you're never sexual. You're just not into me. You'll never be as interested in sex as I am. When we use negative, we'll almost never get a positive response.
That's a great tip.
And so when you were talking about the fruit of the spirit of learning to be patient and learning to demonstrate love and learning to bring joy, even in those moments that we may feel rejected by our spouse, of considering this really may not be about me.
Mm.
It may be something going on with them. So if God's put me in this relationship, how might I best come alongside my spouse on this journey for us to develop deeper connection?
It's so
Yeah.
good.
I'm going to oversimplify something, and it's going to very much classify men as the higher desire and women as not. You can fix all of my words. My dad used to say men had sex to fall in love and women had sex because they were in love. And we do know that there is like scientific backing, right? That men do feel more attracted and more, in tune and synced emotionally when they have sex. So speak to the cycle that you see, whether it is the man or the woman who has the higher desire. What's the cycle of like, I want sex and you don't, and I want emotional safety and you're not giving it to me. This like back and forth
That's great.
wrestle of like, if you don't give me my emotional safety, I'm not giving you sex. And if you don't give me sex, I'm not giving you emotional safety. Like, speak to that because I feel
Yeah,
like I hear that a lot among conversations with women.
sure, sure. And to sum up that conflict is often, what they're saying is, why would I want to have sex with you? You don't even want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Why would I want to talk to you? You don't want to have sex with me.
Hmm.
So we can get in that banter. So I think, helping a couple realize this is the impasse. So how do we create emotional safety
Hmm.
so that there is sexual affirmation and emotional affirmation? And so I would say that there's part of that that's not, it's not simplifying, and there is some truth, I think, for many men that they feel most affirmed if they are desired sexually. And when they feel affirmed and desired sexually in that vulnerability, because they're connected, they can be more vulnerable to open up emotionally. And for many women who feel, if I feel that you got me and you know me and you've got my heart and you're interested in me and my heart, I'm able to be more vulnerable and open up my body to you.
Hmm.
And I think that that's fairly typical for many of those couples. And then for when the wife is the higher desire, that is it's like she still wants the emotional safety, but she wants to know, I want to know you're into me,
Hmm.
that you would want to connect with me and affirm my sensuality. And for men who are the lower desire, they do want their wives to know, look, I'm not that typical guy of whatever, the emotional part matters to me.
Yeah.
And what I experience with you, and again, I love the thought of what we experience outside the bedroom is really going to follow us inside the bedroom
Hmm.
and impact us. And then what we experience inside the bedroom has the power to impact us outside the bedroom. But whether we're the higher desire spouse or the lower desire spouse, if what we're doing outside the bedroom is critical and harsh or negative or always stern, anal and type A, and it has to be this way, and fairly rigid in our thinking with our spouse outside the bedroom, what do you think they're going to experience or think we're going to be inside the bedroom?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and
That's
then versus if we can create that, and this is why I think that emotional safety piece is so important. If we create emotional safety with one another, we're able to be playful. And we want sexual intimacy to be playful,
hmm
but we can't be playful without safety,
That's so good.
Yeah, that's true.
you know. And so if I don't trust that, gosh, if I can redirect or correct or lean into you outside the bedroom without you exploding or getting defensive or whatever outside the bedroom, why would I trust that inside the bedroom? And so and unfortunately, it kind of starts outside the bedroom to what we bring in because inside the bedroom thinking is so vulnerable, you know. And when we can create that outside the bedroom and bring it in, and we know, okay, we can trust the safety inside the bedroom, then we're able to be more playful and focusing on pleasure and the erotic things and satisfying. And then when we receive that, man, that can go a long way then
Mhm.
outside the bedroom.
Yeah.
Again, it just goes back to showing what we said in the very beginning about the interconnectedness of
Hmm.
all of it. There is no separating. I want to zoom in just on one thing real quick that I know you and I had kind of talked about a little bit before with one of the resources that we'll post in our show notes. The colors you had talked about the
Yeah.
green and the orange and the purple for the touching colors because I just thought that was a great just nugget to kind of tuck away for people to kind of understand and start to have a dialogue and a way to communicate about these things.
What I'll do, I have a recommended reading list, and so I will email that to y'all that you can post in the, pick and choose. But the book that I'm referring to is Total Intimacy, uh, kind of experiencing the full color of intimacy. And it's written by one of my very dear mentors and good friends and I got to teach with him and teach under him. The late Doug Rosenau, who passed in April. It'll be 4 years this coming April. But such an incredible book, and he really talks about in creating intimacy physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But on the physical levels, we need to understand that affection needs to happen at a green level. And that's that kind of touch that would be hand holding and an arm around the waist or light kisses and light touch with one another. Most a green touch could be done in public, you know. And it's the green touch that's really, really important. I love that he gave it the color green because that's where growth, it
Mm.
allows growth to come. And then he talks about then the second level of touch, a more sensual level of touch, as purple. And we can have light lavender to deep royal purple in our sensual touch, but the sensual touch is that more very private and intimate touch, but it's not always with the goal for erotic orgasmic touch. It is just for, I mean, the sensual understanding our own feelings and the build up and the anticipation, of connecting together. And then there would be the orange touch. That's the more erotic, for arousal, for climax, that typically is for intercourse. And I love why he designed this is because, what we find out is so often when, now I'm going to talk to those who are raised in Christian circles for a minute, because some that were not raised in this, that this doesn't make sense. But a lot of those raised in Christian circles were told, you know, don't have sex. We're not even going to talk about it. We're not even going to really prepare you on how to have those boundaries or why it's important. Just don't have sex. In fact, we're too embarrassed to talk about this thing that may be a little bad. Um, Wait till you're married and you'll do it with the one you love. Oh, and while you're dating, don't do too much of that kissing and hand holding and petting because it's just going to make you, want to have sex, and we don't want you to do that. And so then when we marry and we finally have this go light, to go to the orange, to truly have intercourse and engage in intercourse, it's almost like then that becomes the thing that everybody's going to go to.
Mhm.
But what we know about women, we women need that buildup. We need, I mean, just the way our bodies are designed, they got desire, they're aroused. Like, it's go time, Women is like, whoa, 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 wait, I need a little of that, foreplay, you know. Um, eh, I think this is interesting too. In our field, the saying is for men, foreplay is whatever happens in the 3 minutes before intercourse. And for women, it's everything that happens in the 24 hours before intercourse. So when we look at those colors, what happens so often when couples marry, they just depend on going to the orange.
Mm.
And I had to say to one man, he looked at me, he said, my wife, she recoils every time I touch her.
Mm.
She just recoils. I can't, even if I go to sit close to her and put my hand on her thigh and such, anytime I reach out and touch her, she recoils. And I said, well, when do you do this? And he said, well, typically when I want sex. And I said, so is that the only time you go to touch her is when you want sex? And he said, yes. And I said, so there's never any touch or caressing or talking or connecting without it going to intercourse? He's like, no, always touch her, let her know I want sex.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped in mid-sentence and he said, I've trained my wife to recoil from me, haven't I?
Wow.
I said, I think you have.
Wow.
Wow.
So what we often miss out is how important that green touch and that purple touch is. So often couples talk to me and they go, Debbie, we didn't even know there was purple. You know? And there's this expectation go to green to orange, and that just doesn't work for me. And once they discover, wow, what we've been missing
Mm.
and learning, I love helping couples learn to develop that green and purple. So it's the build up to the orange.
Mm.
And then the book just gives a great language for couples doing that. It helps have boundaries. Hey, babe, I would love to watch a movie and have some green and purple with you. I don't know that it's not going to be an orange night, but I would love some green and purple with you. Or being able to ask for, hey, would there be an evening this week that we could have orange? Well, that kind of depends on how good you are with green and purple through the it just helps give a real language, but also we've got to include what else is relationally going on, for the green and the purple.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think the language to it, I think that can kind of help take some pressure off of it when there's this common language and bring in some of the fun that you talked about. So that's why I love that resource.
Yeah, I love that too. What about if the woman, like say there's a woman listening and she realizes what you just said, oh, that's me. I recoil because that has always been just kind of the sign, like, hey, let's go get it on or whatever. And, and she's realizing I'm recoiling without going to read the book, which we do recommend you do eventually, but, today, this weekend, like what's something that a woman could say, what's some language they could give their husband of like, this is how I feel. This is why we've gotten to this point that I recoil is because for years, I feel like when you touch me, it's for this versus you just want a hug.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it that you just asked the good practical questions, like how would one even begin that? So again, we want to kind of go with the positives. We want positive. So I think stepping into that conversation of, hey, I listened to this podcast the other day and it so resonated with me about something that I want to share with you because I think it's something that I haven't had words for. And I think you feel the impact of it. And our marriage has certainly felt the impact of it. But here's what I heard. And without us having to repeat it, kind of explain that.
Yeah.
This is the levels. And then I think could we listen to that podcast together? And I there's some things that I might not do a good job explaining, but I would love for you to listen to this with me because I so want this different for us. I think you've been frustrated about it. I've probably been frustrated about it, and we haven't known how to get out of it. I think this could be helpful. Then after listening to the podcast, could we order that book and be willing to read it together?
Yeah.
If anybody's heard me speak before, they've heard this assignment, and I use this for couples a lot. I go with what works, what I know that's been personally works. It might not work for everybody else. But early on in our marriage, my husband and I we're both feet people, meaning we love to rub each other's feet. We love to have our feet rubbed. I take my husband for a pedicure about every 6 weeks, so his feet are soft, so I enjoy rubbing his feet. But not manipulative, he's willing, and then we both get the benefit. But we've done many books this way: novels, self-help books, financial books, spiritual books. But we will read the book out loud together, laying on opposite ends of the couch, and whoever's reading out loud gets the foot rub.
Oh, nice.
And so, see, we're engaging in kind of that greenish purple
Hmm.
touch. And it's green because you could do that in public. You're probably just not going to. But it's purple because you really don't do that with anybody else. And so we're including touch while we're reading about touch. And then at the end of every chapter in that book, where there's questions, and it allows for both couples to respond, both parties of the couple to respond to the question. And it just gives us, we're both willing to learn something new. And this is what I would want anybody who's hesitant about doing therapy or reading a sexual book with a spouse or whatever. If we want something different, we've got to do something different. If we just keep doing the same thing, we're going to keep getting the same thing.
Yeah.
And so asking the spouse, would you be willing to do something different with me? We've not ever done this before. Let's give it a shot, you know?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Just even the way you model approaching it is just, it's just full of humility and gentleness and love and like seeking a good thing for the marriage and for each other. So I think that's great.
And I really love just the positive aspect of it, and then the vulnerability. I feel like, what you're saying, if a wife could just go and be vulnerable and say, I realize this is an issue, can we talk about it? Can we fix it? Versus just like, why do you always touch me? Then, and I feel like that's kind of the words that a lot of, marriages have going on.
Right. Yeah, starting with the negative. And I would sum up it's an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So to approach with more of an inviting way instead of a stopping way, you know.
Yeah.
And to invite our spouse into that conversation, to invite our spouse into an opportunity for connection, to invite our spouse to grow with me.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, so I know you like tackling the fun, hard topics in Christian marriage, and so we have to give you an opportunity for that because I think it's one of the things that maybe isn't always discussed when it comes to marriage. The idea of pornography. I think we hear a lot about it when it comes to just speaking to men or speaking to singles. But it is a question that comes up quite a bit, even in Christian marriages, that I know that you get about people asking, is there a place for pornography when it comes to Christian marriage?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. And I remember I got to just always get to have precious opportunities to speak at different churches. And one time I got this opportunity to speak at a singles weekend, and they said, well, will you be available and can you speak? We'll send the topic later. And I was like, yes and okay. And I get that the title of the topic is a very touchy subject, and they gave me porn and masturbation. And I was like, wow, who gets the hard topic? So anyway, I do enjoy speaking on the hard topics because they've got to be mentioned. And typically, whether I speak to a singles group or women's retreats, married couples retreats, if they've submitted questions, ask any question, masturbation is probably one of the number one questions that's always asked. And it's usually asked, is there ever an opportunity that it's okay for Christian couples, or is it always a sin? And then is pornography, is that helpful or hurtful, or can we, or if we've both consented, is it okay? And so let me separate them first and kind of tackle masturbation first, and then we'll tackle pornography. But I think masturbation is one of those questions that when it says, is it in the Bible anyway? And so we have a lot of direct scripture in the Bible. We have a lot of indirect scripture. direct scripture would be, thou shalt not commit adultery. I mean, even the least knowledgeable or ignorant, we usually figure that one out. Okay, don't commit adultery. We can get that one. But something like masturbation, it's not mentioned. We really don't know. So we have to look at other scripture that maybe indirectly that we could apply to masturbation. And so I think we always want to take in consideration our relationship with the Lord and what's going on in our relationship with the Lord. So one, we know he designed our bodies. And we know he designed it, all of our erogenous zones and all of our genitalia. And he sat back and he said, what?
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. It's good. So we have permission to go, our bodies are good. And so where we touch our bodies, that's got to be okay that we can touch our bodies. Okay. But then also we have a lot of other scripture that suggest that God dwells within us and our bodies are a temple. So we ought to honor God with our bodies. So, wow, we have responsibility what we do with our bodies. And so we have responsibility with, are we doing something that's God honoring with our bodies? And so when we look at something like masturbation, we typically go, okay, masturbation is for stimulation of our sensations and for feel good. And the ultimate goal, typically, of masturbation is climax and orgasm. Okay? We know that climax and orgasm can release a sedative over our bodies. We know it's a great feel good. If something feels good, what are we going to want to do with it?
Keep doing it.
Well, we keep doing it. Right. So with most of the things in life that feel good, what does it require?
Discipline.
Self-discipline and boundaries. I mean, think of all the really, spending,
Cake.
Ice cream.
I was thinking of cake.
I mean, you think of it, we still have to somewhat have a disciplined approach with it. And then Paul says twice, he talks about in 6:12, 1 Corinthians 6:12, Paul talks about everything may be permissible, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit, but not everything's beneficial, and I don't want to be mastered by anything. I need to make sure I don't ever become a slave to something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'd have to look, are there benefits in masturbation that I'm not being a slave to it? Could that at all benefit me? Could that end up being, as he says then in 10:24, 1 Corinthians 10:24, he says everything might be permissible, not necessarily beneficial, but we want it to be constructive, not deconstructive. And so we have to look at it. Could that be constructive for us? So coming back to that dialogue thing, most couples have never dialogued about masturbation. Most couples have never had a conversation. What do we think about masturbation? Oh, I just almost can't get out of my mouth because it feels so much shame around it.
Yeah.
What does it mean? And so can masturbation be a sin? Absolutely. It could be. I mean, if in marriage, it's like, oh man, it's just easier to take care of myself than try to get this one to understand what I need or what I want. And then, so if a spouse takes care of themselves, then later when the other spouse tries to approach, it's like, kind of, no, I'm good. I mean, so now we're being disruptive to the intimacy that really is supposed to come with sexual connection. And then with the studies we know with orgasm, the way that the oxytocin spikes with orgasm, it's a very bonding experience with our spouses.
Mm-hmm.
That same research shows that the oxytocin doesn't release in excess like that with just masturbation. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
And it spikes at like 500% for men. Wow. with orgasm. It spikes for women with orgasm, but not in that excess. So if we were using masturbation as a way to take care of ourselves, that ends up impeding our intimacy, then that is missing the mark, which is what sin is, about what God designed for us, creating intimacy.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
Could there be seasons or periods where, say, a wife is pregnant or has had an injury, a spouse has had an injury that's keeping them from being able to have intercourse and connect in that way, but there was an agreement between the husband and wife. I'm okay with you doing that as long as all your thoughts are on me. I I give you permission to think of me while doing that because I'm too exhausted to be able to do this right now. Or there could be different seasons, but could there be an involvement with the spouse with that still allows it to be intimate? And so if a couple can decide on that, then who would I be to say, no, you can't do that? But see, it requires that dialogue.
Yeah.
And then again, one last thing in that, if in the past, because we're talking about porn, if someone's masturbation has always been connected with porn, and they're like able to be honest, okay, Debbie, there is no way that I masturbate without filling my head with all those images that I've been exposed to with porn. I just that they can't be separated from me. Then that would not be a good thing. That wouldn't be healthy for that person to engage in masturbation. So see, when I said the problem with complexity is pretty complicated, there's not an easy answer,
Yeah.
really.
No, but that is a great kind of roadmap through it all. You said
Right.
that very well.
Right.
Okay. And then so I would say all that ties in to then when we look at pornography. And because we do know and have research that porn can be as addicting to a person, it's that circuity in the brain of that reward system, that chase, that anticipation, the reward, and then to go for, oh my goodness, if this was rewarding, then more would be better. And that someone really can become addicted to pornography. And so coming back to the passages that we used a while ago is if I could be mastered by that or become a slave to that, then that's not going to be beneficial to me. But I think at the very bottom line, I don't know how we can really watch porn without lusting. And Christ had some pretty significant words to say about lusts. He says, if we lust after someone else, that lusting after, because lust is about taking.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're lusting, he says it's like adultery. And so how do we go into participating in something that's going to cause us to lust, you know? And so when we think of love should, and I think it's say sexually, it should be about giving
Yeah, not
and
self-seeking.
giving, but lust is always about taking.
Mm-hmm.
And love and sex ought to be about honoring, and lust is always about dishonoring, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I think if we're engaging in to be constructive for us, our intimacy and growth together, I've just seen experience with friends, family members, clients, just how destructive porn be with the young single men and single women that so struggle with staying away from porn. And then it just so disrupts even how they see the opposite sex or then how they see themselves. And a lot of it comes, comparison about self. That's what I'm supposed to be like, Uh, and then I just don't see anything when we look at what God designed in intimacy, and He designed our marital bed, our marriages, our sexuality to be God reflective. I just don't know how porn can be God reflective at all,
Yeah.
you know. So again, that's something for couples to be able to talk about.
So
Yeah, that's
good.
really good. I love the distinction between the love and the lust. Loving someone is for their goodwill.
Mm.
I want the best for them. And, lusting is like I want my own will and I want to use you or whatever thing to be good for me. And so
Yeah.
just that distinction between the two. So good.
And one of the things too, and that just unpacking more specifically what porn does often, if couples choose, and again, consent is big, and we do need to be able to consent to things, but just because a couple consents to something doesn't make it holy.
Mhm.
Consent and holy are kind of different topics,
Right.
and just because we both consented doesn't make it okay. But when couples have or they've engaged with that, just some of the destruction that I've seen in it, that there becomes then this disengagement in the couple's intimacy. It's like if they're having to go to what they've seen in porn, and now their mind is on the fantasy or that experience, now they've lost connection in the intimacy. And or whether it's they've gone to performance mode. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to sound like and be like and exude from this experience, that now they're in their head about what they've seen and they're not even really in touch with what their own body enjoys or what they want out of the experience. And then it causes so much questioning. Is Are they really connected with me, or are they lusting after what they've seen, or comparison? Or then the other thing it often does, porn does, it makes, and I'm going to say this more of a male female thing, but often what porn presents for males, I think it teaches them to be lazy lovers.
Mm.
They're just like, oh, well, that's what they're supposed to sound like, or that's what they're supposed to do, or they're supposed to orgasm that easily. They're supposed to want this, that because they've seen the affirmation so much on the faces of women in porn, they think that all women are supposed to be like that,
So it
you
goes
know?
back to the myths that we talked about in the beginning, all
Hmm.
these, false assumptions
Yeah.
that exist.
Yeah.
Right. And then are kind of make them entitled of, well, you ought to want to do that for me,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
But I don't like that thing. Well, then you probably ought to watch this and see what you're supposed to like, you know. I mean, so it can get just almost self-focused of what's erotic and feels good for me, and almost not paying attention, to the spouse. For women, we talk a lot about the women comparing themselves to what they see, and I'm no porn star and I'm not that. But also, where the damage can be is that they get this idea again of what it's supposed to be like for me, or I'm supposed to like that, and I don't. And so I keep doing this thing that I don't like. And then I kind of feel disgusted afterwards because I thought that's what I had to do. And so I just see that porn has the risk of being so much more destructive
Mm.
to sexual intimacy than constructive.
Wow. That is
Well
great.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so good.
You should be an expert on this, Debbie, because you just talk so well about it. You should be a Christian sex therapist.
Ah,
Really.
I might have to try that.
That's awesome.
That's so just
Mm.
really, I think some just beautiful words um, to help people navigate through difficult things. And
Yeah.
so really super appreciative for that. If there was, there's a woman listening who is in a place of maybe she doesn't have a lot of hope in this area,
Mm.
or what would be, whether it's a resource or maybe it's something that you've already said, or just a prayer, or just how would you speak to the heart of a woman that wants to see fruit in this area but isn't sure what the next step is?
Okay. So that's pretty broad. So I'm going to answer it broad, and then
Great.
maybe we can narrow it down just a little bit. So I'll always want to give hope, because we trust in a God of hope. our faith is based on hope. And so I think here's what I recommend in that we have hope in the Lord that because he designed sex, he designed marriage. This matters. I loved y'all's quote. You had a quote down that when we need help or we seek help, it's not because something's broken,
Mm.
but it's because it matters. And for us to really know our beliefs about sex, our ideas around sex, how our sexual intimacy is being experienced in our marriage, it matters to God
Mm, yeah.
if we're interested in it. And so, one, I would breath prayers around it. And Rick Warren talks about breath prayers in the book, The Purpose Driven Life. And it's like, we just need to gravitate to the power of that. Lord, help me be willing to change in this. Give me the courage to speak to my husband. Help me start liking sex. Okay, I'm in these middle ages and sex is very different. Help me have hope that there's still hope, you know. So I think just learning breath prayers and trusting that I can pray about my sex life,
Yeah,
you know.
good.
And then acceptance. Okay, we have to walk in acceptance and empowerment. So if we're speaking to oldish women and we realize some of this has changed because our bodies are changing. Oh my goodness. It's hormones, it's like that, okay, Lord, this matters. This isn't a surprise to you. So help me be willing to find answers. Help me to be wise in it. I want to be discerning. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to just use excuses. I want to still have a willingness of growth and learning. And God, you designed my body. So where it is now doesn't come as a surprise to you as much as it did to me. So with all that's out there, learn of what might be wise for me.
I think that's amazing.
Help me to not be so selfish if it's just like, I kind of don't want to have to do this. I just wish you'd change my spouse. You know, uh, help me to look at what I need to change. And then, Father, help me to trust with what you're going to make my spouse aware of. So, acceptance, accept where I am. And then, Lord, give me courage, kind of the serenity prayer, but give me courage to step in what I'm empowered to change.
Mm.
I am empowered to read a book. I am empowered to listen to more podcasts. I am empowered to change some of these things about my body that I can change.
Mhm.
Some I can't, but I am empowered to do some better health, get better sleep, not stay so busy that I'm fatigued. Help me be wise what to say no to so I can say yes to this that's important. Help me to change my view around sex if it's all negative.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that is good.
And that's what we forget is when we come back to that mind thing and mental thing. Because if we think about, let's say, well, I had negative experiences in my childhood, I had negative experience in my singles years. Most of my sexual experience had been negative in my marriage. I'm just going to go with still thinking negative about sex. Okay, that would be, Lord, is there something you're wanting me to do that in this season of life that I could grow and see it as positive? I love Julie Slattery's book, God, Sex, and Your Marriage. She does an incredible job of unpacking the theology around sex, but just some really healthy, healing things of reminding us as couples that when we come together sexually, it's like renewing our covenant.
Mm.
Ah, that sounds so much better than duty.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, and I know it was a general question, it was a general answer, but what I love is the specificity of it is just invite God in.
Hmm.
He is the God who invented our bodies, invented sex. And so break open that part of your life when it comes to prayer and inviting him in. So I think that's actually perfect place to invite people to start just going to the Lord, seeking him, search me and know me, like
Hmm.
start with yourself. And so I don't know, those last 4 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
That was gold. That was
Yeah.
so great. Summed it up so well.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things we've talked about a lot is how God just lavishes his love on us so much. And he was meant to be what fulfilled our soul, right? And I think so often we think if I can just get this behavior perfect, then it's going to fulfill me versus going to God and asking him to be the one that
Mm.
grows, the relationship from the root of him being our fulfillment and the one that lavishes love on us. So that's good.
So good.
Absolutely.
I love the practicality of everything you've talked about today, just the vulnerability of it, the
The
communication,
communication. Yeah.
communication. Did I say communication?
Communication. I
Yeah,
think we mentioned
I think
that.
communication was really good. And so,
Maybe vulnerable communication.
yeah, as much as
Yeah,
it's about sex, it is about the communication. And so, you can't have one without the other. Yeah.
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd want to speak into real quick for women, because I know that's going to be the majority of your listeners. I I always want to encourage women to learn to lean into our power of our femininity
Mm,
and sensuality. And I think Satan, he does a heyday of coming after our sexuality because one, he knows our bodies are temples of the Lord. Okay. So he wants to attack the temple. Okay. But he also knows that God designed sex to be good and good for us. And so he comes along with these twistings of things that we women again through cultural messages or whatever. It's almost like we lean way far to the left and then we lean way far to the right, and instead of coming back into this middle. But if religiously we've been taught that, well, sexually and for you, it was designed for your husband, and so it's going to be your duty to serve your husband kind of on demand whenever he wants. You had to practice saying no, no, no before marriage, but you're going to have to give that up when you marry, and you just got to say yes, yes, yes. I mean, that's a crazy message. And so we went on learning, helping women understand desire. And yes, we are designed to have our desire, and we're to desire the things of, and sex was made for us. But we've almost gone so far then over this is, unless you have desire, girl, you don't have to do anything. You
mm,
know, it's like, well, and you just wait till desire comes. Well, again, if all we've had is negative, 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 we're flat over here with no desire, it ain't just going to show up.
Right.
yeah.
you know. And so, what is it that we can learn to do for ourselves to change that mindset of, wow, maybe the evil one has tricked me out of gaining something God designed for me?
Wow. Wow.
And we do have a lot in scripture of the power of us as women in our sensuality. And I just, again, taking in consideration the relationship, what's happening relationally. If we have husbands who are loving and kind, they may not be meeting our emotional needs real well, but we know that they're loving or kind. Can we step up and learn the value of our sensuality in affirming them? Or if we are the high desire spouse, can we understand the power, though, of our tone of voice and how we can use that in drawing our husbands near to us instead of pushing them away from us? And so I think that it's time to reclaim spiritually the
Mm,
power of our sensuality with our
Love
spouses.
that.
that is so good. Yeah.
So I just encourage women, yes, have hope and have the encouragement to step into what you're empowered to do differently, accepting, what our reality is. And there may be some grieving we have to do in that,
Mm,
but then what are we empowered to do to create change?
mm. Yeah, that's so good. I don't think there's anything that makes a Christian woman madder than to think Satan is coming against her home, her family, her
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And so just those words of that, like, should make
Take it
every
back.
woman want to be like, absolutely not
Yeah.
today, Satan,
That's
right?
great.
You don't get to
Yes.
come into my marriage that way. So that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Or come in preventing something for me from gaining something
Right.
that It's for me.
A
Right?
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, still kill and destroy,
Yeah.
something that's a gift for
Yeah.
us. So
Yeah.
gosh, okay. So I think we probably have a lot of people who are going to want to know more. And so, like I said, we're going to put your website that's going to have access to all of the great things that you offer and make available, which is the one-on-one counseling, but also those incredible retreats. And then we'll also show the resources and the books and stuff that you've referenced as well. So, man, Debbie, this was incredible. There's just I love the way that God has just uniquely placed you
Mhm.
in the body to be a gift and a benefit, something that is so needed. And so, man, just thank you for your life and your work and your time here today. So, every week before we wrap up, we like to just look at the week ahead to say, how are we going to go enjoy the life that God gave us? And so, what do you have coming up that you're going to go do to enjoy the life that God gave you?
I'll tell you that, but first I have to say thank y'all. Thank y'all for creating this platform. And I just, think of the tapestry of life that God weaves, that He brought the two of you together. Sarah, I'm just thankful for the however many years ago it was that, and it probably had to at least be 25, you
Almost
know.
Wow,
nice.
you're
Yeah.
oldish.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Um,
So
that
Sarah had bangs back then, right?
Probably a little swoop, I'm sure.
just, that y'all had this vision to create a platform to speaking into women and encourage them. So thank y'all for doing what God designed and gifted y'all to do, even in the creativity of y'all's names, Sarah and Kara. I mean, I just truly love that. And sorry that I didn't show up with Dara, but that would have been really cute. But so thank y'all for your design of using y'all's giftedness and creating a space for women to come and hear really good, healthy information.
Yeah, well,
So,
we couldn't do it without guests like you for
Mm-mm,
sure.
no.
So thank you for being here with us.
well, it was a privilege, a privilege. So, what I have going on next week is my husband and I are doing a trip to Canada, to Vancouver, to Wickaninnish Inn. And actually, it's early Valentine's. And so we are going up and just can't wait to just have some one on one time together. So, we're really excited about that.
That's
Oh,
awesome. I
that's
love
gonna be,
weekends away for
I
sure.
know.
Yeah.
Especially because how far is that for you guys to pop over to Canada?
It's yeah, to pop over. It's really not that far. It's about an 8-hour drive. We'll break it up and we do the ferry across over to Vancouver Island. And so, yeah, it'll be a fun experience.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Awesome. Well, Kara, what about you this week?
Okay, I'm gonna take yours. I feel like anytime we're doing anything together, Sarah
Whoever
takes it
goes first.
first. And so, yeah, we get to go this weekend. My daughter asked for a Christmas present to go to the Great Gatsby, and it's playing in Dallas this weekend. And I knew Sarah loved Broadway musicals as much as my daughter does. So I was like, hey, you want to go? And originally you were supposed to take your daughter-in-law, but she has a
Yes, she has a
conflict.
conflict, and then daughter couldn't come down because of her school schedule, and so my aunt is actually coming up, and so me and my aunt are gonna go. So this will just be both of ours. And we're
Which
gonna
I'm really
enjoy.
excited because I haven't met your
I
aunt,
know.
and apparently she loves me already. So
Does.
So
I'm
there you
super excited to meet her.
And we all have the same size feet. We all are big feet girls, and so that's always a fun thing to talk about shoes. And my aunt has a great boot collection that I covet a little bit. So there'll be just lots
go.
of fun, random things.
Fun.
Yeah,
I
it'll be a fun
love that.
weekend.
Uh,
It'll be fun.
just
Well, oh, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, just tying in our topic, our female connections and intimacy with good friends and family members, our femaleness, that's as important to our marital relationships, really,
Mhm.
as developing intimacy with our spouse, because that's part of what um, our design is. And when we get to thrive in that, we thrive in our marriages.
Ah,
That's
we
amazing.
totally agree with that.
Oh, great.
An expert just told us.
Yay! We should spend more time together. That's
We
what I
should, that's
heard.
what I heard too.
Okay, yeah,
Definitely.
great. Great. Well, thank you so
Thank you,
much for
Debbie.
being here with us. We just so appreciate you, and definitely, like we said, we'll leave in the show notes. So if you're listening,
Yeah.
watching, be sure you grab all of Debbie's information in the show notes. So
Yeah. So everybody listening, go enjoy the life that God gave you this
that's
week.
that's right. Okay, bye.
Thank,
Bye.
thank you. Y'all come see me in Montana.
Oh, we'd love
Oh,
to.
happening
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today on That's Why We're Friends.
We hope you laughed, felt encouraged, and are walking away with a little more hope for your day.
If you love this episode, make sure to follow the podcast so you never miss what's next.
And share it with a friend who needs a little encouragement, because that's why we're friends.
Some products or services we mention may be paid promotions. Any advice shared should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Our conversations and opinions are meant for encouragement and entertainment only.